This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Joey Zampella. He's been creating and recording music professionally for more than 30 years, especially known for his guitar work in the bands Life of Agony and Stereomud. Joey succeeded in putting records out on Columbia, Sony, Epic, Sony, and Roadrunner, just to name a few. His combined record sales top over 1 million and continue to grow year after year. Joey has been an established record producer, engineer, and post-audio editor, mixer, and designer for film, TV, and video. His current studio, The Nest, which is located in Long Island, New York, is where he produces records for clients and also has the ability to do full-fledged audio production for TV and the film world. Music production, mixing, all needs to move me. It absolutely needs to have emotion behind it, says Joey. I allow my creativity or whatever I do for my clients to be driven by a voice inside me. It's the only way. It's a pleasure to have you on, Joey.
Hi, Kat.
Hey,
What's
how are
up?
you? I know it's so
Wow,
much fun.
I haven't heard my bio in a while, and hearing it, I'm like, you make me sound like I'm something. Like,
You are
I'm just a
something.
guy from Brooklyn. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn, really.
You are something. You know, it's so interesting because you and I were together recently at a party in the city for Rob Caggiano. And
Yes.
we just completely had so much like to talk about, and we had so many common stories and common friends. I was like, I have to have you on my show. But oddly enough, when I started to go back, I'm like, wow, Life of Agony. I'm like, wow, wait a minute, that's Weeds, that's this, that's that. All these songs started coming back to me. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So, yes.
First, I gotta say, it was a great night. Rob's birthday party, his 50th. Sorry, Rob, we just gave it away. You're 50. Don't worry, you're younger than both Catherine and I, but we won't talk about that. Um, yeah, that was a great night, and like you said, it was wonderful meeting you, and we hit it off right away. We had so much to talk about, and I'm so grateful you brought me on here.
Yes, no, it was a lot of fun. And you know, it's so interesting though, because I always say, you know, fun people have fun friends. You know, I've said that for like
Yes,
30 or 40 years now. And it's so true though, you know, and just like you said, like listening to my bio, you know, time flies, you know, you've
yes,
been at this for probably more than 30 years.
I have.
And you know, you sit back and you say, wow, I remember this. This was a really hard time in my life. Or I remember this. This was like the quickest song I wrote or the easiest thing I did. You know, but when
Yes.
you look back, you're like, wow, that was a long time ago sometimes, you know, and it's like, wow, that felt like yesterday.
Yes, it's sometimes it scares me. I got to be honest. Just speaking honestly here, of course, always. Sometimes it does scare me lately. I don't know why. It's been affecting me more lately. Sometimes I'll lay in bed and I get a little bit emotional about how much time has passed. I have a wife and two daughters. My daughters are going to be 19 and 17 right now. One's going to college already, and I just can't believe I remember the day Sophia is the older one. She's turning 19. I remember the day she was born. Like, everyone says it's cliche, but I remember it like it was yesterday, being there in a hospital. And now it's just like I turn around and see her in the kitchen, and she's a full grown, quote unquote, woman standing in the kitchen. So it's like the time just flies. And, I try to make every day special. I try to do something with myself every day and keep it fun, like you said. It's very important, super important.
Yes, it is. I know. But the biggest thing, especially with my friends in the music business, you know, you look back and you might say, like, you keep yourself awake at night thinking about, like, how much time do I have left? You have to
Right,
reflect back on how much you've contributed, you know? There's
right.
so many, you know, I think of this because I was in the Army for 30 years, and every once in a while I get a phone call, I'll run into a soldier, and they're like, oh, Colonel Nadell, they'll just say something like, oh my God, I can't, you know, you taught me this, or I can't remember I can't remember
Yeah,
where did we go on that trip, or what did we do on this thing? And it's like, you made an impact on someone, even if it's the
Right.
smallest thing. And especially with fans, so many of my friends have told me, like, wow, they have people that come up to them and like roll up their pant leg and they're like, look at my tattoo. It's like their
Oh
face.
yeah.
I'm
It
sure you've
happens all the
had that,
time.
right?
I've freaked out like in a good way. I've had people walk up to me and pull up their sleeve, and my signature is tattooed on their arm. My actual signature that they maybe signed with a Sharpie is now tattooed on their arm or whatever. And it's like, wow, that's for life. There's no going back, people. You got my signature tattooed on you. It's very special, all kidding aside, it's like you said, we're affecting people's lives. Everything we've done in the past. And like, you've said it a couple minutes ago, life could be hard at times. There was times where I remember struggling, feeling like you were dragged through the mud, feeling like, you were grinding life out. And, those ups and downs, those lows, those always made those high points so much higher. As I'm sure you would agree with me that those lows that you go through make those highs so much higher. And
Yes.
we need to go through that, I guess. We need to learn. We need to gain that knowledge.
That's right. And there's one thing I can actually say, like, especially in the work that you do, you know, I understand the work that you do only because I've hung out with Rob Caggiano for so many years. I understand what it means to produce, and I understand what it means to mix and audio edits and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you're in it, like you think it's like never going to end, and even starting this radio show, someone was like, oh, you need to learn this or you need to learn that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm too old to be learning this stuff now. But in the 1 year that I've been doing it, I'm like, I reflect back and I'm like, wow, I know so much now. Like this is a
You learned
whole,
a lot.
yeah, and it's a whole
Right.
nother level of learning because I really didn't ever record anything. I never got anything prepared at this level before. So I was just like, wow, you're never too old to learn. But it's also interesting that someone in your position and being a
Mhm.
recording artist, but also being able to reduce, kind of produce
Produce,
and
yeah.
yeah, produce your records and produce and kind of mix other people's stuff. I'm sure other people offer you to do things for them
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, all the time.
And, when they say, what do I do with this? I can't figure it out. Should I just cut it out? Should we just like kill this and like do something new? Because of the hard times that you've gone through, you probably use your own experience, like, let's not
Yes.
kill this or let's kill this and like move on because you reflect back on something that happened to you, right?
Yes, my clients all the time. I'm in the studio right now. My clients always ask me. They're like, "Joe, please be open with us about what you like, what you don't like, what you think works, what you want to cut out." Just, and I always say to them, "I will only be that way with you, because I wouldn't be doing. I'd be doing them a misservice if I wasn't honest with my clients. So I've had times where I've politely asked someone to go work on something a bit more. They came in to record, it wasn't working out. I say, listen, I know you came all the way here today. Take some time, go back home, work on this more. We'll work on it a bit here, but it seems like you need to practice this more. Come back and we'll try it again. I think it's very important to be honest with people. There's not enough of that going around. You got people going to these studios, going to record, and just people grabbing their money, recording whatever they had there going on, and then the person leaves and that's what they have forever. I'd like for someone to look back and say, wow, that was an experience I had with Joey. He was honest. He worked with me, blah, 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 blah. You get it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's also what probably brings your name to being recommended probably more often
Right,
because
right.
people like you took the time, and that's really what people remember about that. And I think a lot of times this is what I hear very often, and you probably hear it probably more than I hear it, but there's a different level of music that's being produced nowadays,
Yeah,
and anyone can sound good, and they will make anyone sound good because of AI and different technologies that are coming through. And, for the, musician that's been at it longer, it's kind of really frustrating, that there's this, everyone is an instant star when they're
Yeah.
really not.
Well, I'll tell you what, also, I can easily, I'm a big fan of hearing the heart and hearing the organic nature in a song. I'm a big fan of that. A lot of this newer music that comes out, even in the heavy metal world. I'll give you an example. I heard, and I'm saying no names, I heard a recent record recording, someone told me to check it out. And when I turned this recording on, it was so perfect, meaning like every single hit on the drums was in line, every single stroke on the guitar was perfect. Everything was so perfect that I got bored before the first song was even done. It made me tired. It made my mind and my heart, I wasn't attached to the music. It didn't do anything for me emotionally. I didn't hear the human aspect in the song that I was listening to, and I ended shutting it off. As perfect as it was, to me, it was imperfect. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, actually. I do. And that's why it's kind of interesting because as a young mind growing up, I wouldn't hear music because I wasn't a musician, but a lot of my friends that were, playing guitars and we were like 18 or 19 years old, they were, playing at the local places in Westchester and in the Bronx and all over. They were like, "Oh, you got to listen to this live album," and I'm like, "Oh no, 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 no! I want the clean version, the live album." She didn't know, like, it's a
Yeah.
totally different song live than it is in the clean version.
The live album's some of the best stuff. That's where all that heart, that's where all that energy comes out, you know? There's something special about a human picking up an instrument, whether it's even using their own vocal cords, whatever it is, in a natural way. The little imperfections, for me, is what gives me the emotion, is what affects me emotionally. It are those little things that we don't have in music these days. Like you turn on a Black Sabbath record versus, let's say, a band that just came out in 2020, and the Black Sabbath, you're just gonna feel a bit different. It's just a different feeling. And I don't know if the new generation can pick up on that as much because they didn't live through our generation of music. So I don't know if they have. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't have the ability to pick up on those intricacies that make it human and make you feel something more from the music. I'm just not sure, but I could be wrong, but I got a feeling I'm not.
I would have to agree with you. And I think part of the issue is social media. They don't have
Yeah.
a big attention span. Like, we would sit through a whole LP,
Hmm.
and just play it a few times, just sitting in our room and stuff. And
Yeah, with the lyrics and
exactly. Yeah,
the art, and
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
now they're watching something on TikTok for like a half a minute and they're on to the
Not
next one.
even
And yeah, exactly.
10
Exactly.
seconds. 10
Exactly.
seconds. You get
Yeah,
10 seconds, basically.
exactly. Yeah.
There's something that someone told me, not to switch this up. Something just struck me that I've been wanting to share with you. And I don't know if you've ever heard someone ask you this before, but someone said to me, start replacing the word have with get. Do that for yourself. Like, people say, oh, I have to go do whatever. I have to go help my friend move, let's say, right? Or I have to go to the gym, or I have to cook dinner later. If you replace the word have to with get, okay? I know this is kind of off topic, but this is something I've been wanting to share with you in particular. I've been doing it lately. When you hear yourself say, I have to go do that, say, I get to go do that. I get to go to the gym. I get to go help my friend move. I get to cook that meal. I get to go to the studio and go do work. It's strange how you feel when you hear yourself saying it differently. Okay. It's something I've been wanting. I was thinking about it all day, and I'm like, I want to share this with Catherine today and to your listeners because I think it just has a very positive effect on people. Everyone I've shared this with said, wow, I never thought of that. I never really looked at that. And I think it's a good practice. Anyway, sorry to throw you off topic.
No,
I was
no,
just
I think
something I wanted to share with you.
but it's very appropriate because,
Yeah.
you have to like, especially nowadays, your life can change within 24 hours. I mean, we're just on the
Yes.
heels of this awful weekend with the fires in LA. They're
Right.
living their life, just yesterday, and now today they don't have a home to go to, or they don't have a music studio to do their work in. And
I was just speaking to a man who's building a custom WAP for me, who's living there, who works in Warner Studios. His name is
oh,
James.
oh,
He's a
wow.
friend. He works in Warner. He hasn't been there in a bunch of time, but he was describing to me what's going on there, and it was unbelievable what he was telling me on the phone, what is going on right now in California.
Yeah,
And
it just,
again, we
yeah, it goes in with your concept of changing how you're saying things, but it's
yes,
also reminding yourself that you have the opportunities to do these things,
yes,
and it's sometimes, it takes like, sometimes it's a sudden illness, someone says, all of a sudden I have vertigo, and, I
right,
had to sit down and I didn't feel like myself, or
right.
someone could say, I got hit with the flu. And I was reading a Facebook post last week, and a guy I know was hit with the flu. He said he hadn't remembered staying in bed for 9 days since he was a kid, and it's like, wow, your physical activity is so taken for granted. You
Yes.
just bounce out of bed and you're just like, oh, okay. The first gift we receive is when we open our eyes in the morning, and
And what you
it's,
just said, like going back to when you were younger, when you were a kid, you know, anything you did seemed so rich with fun and anticipation and enthusiasm. And for us at our age now, it would be nice to hold. I try to hold on to that. I try to personally hold on to that enthusiasm and that I like waking up in the morning and saying, "Okay, I got to do this." Hey, see, I just said it. I have to do this. I should say I get to do this.
that's
I get
right.
to go in the studio. I get to record that guitar part. I get to record that client today. That's what I should be saying, but we're so programmed, you know what I mean? To say it differently or feel differently as we get older. Like I want to like rewind time and start reworking the wiring that got screwed up in my brain over the years. And I don't know.
It's so
That
true, though. But Joey, the way you're describing it, I could just see these two words in my head. When you say have, like you have to do these things, it feels like an obligation. And when
right.
you say get, it's more of an opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Someone also just said you can either be a thermometer in a room or you could be the thermostat. Have you ever heard of that one? If you're a
That's really good.
thermometer, it's a great one. If you're a thermometer, you're always just going to react to everything that's going on, whether good or bad. You're going to be very affected. But they say if you're a thermostat and you set your intention when you enter a room, you can actually be the one to make that room better. You can be the one to bring that positivity, bring the light into the room. So instead of being a thermometer and reading, constantly reading and reacting, because thermometers react to the climate, you could be a thermostat. You could be giving the climate to the room.
Yeah, absolutely. When you said before, and you were talking about being a little kid, so what was Joey like being a little kid?
Oh boy. Well,
Joey was
well, let
in
me,
Brooklyn, right?
oh yeah, Joey lived in Brooklyn. I grew up in a very, very small apartment in Brooklyn with my mom, dad, and my middle brother, Christopher.
What
My
part of
mom and
Brooklyn?
it was Old Mill Basin. It was considered.
Oh,
It
okay.
was Flatlands area, which was like Utica and Flatbush, Kings Plaza Mall. That's a good landmark. People know that mall. I lived walking distance from that mall. We had a kind of a little bit of a rough childhood, and we have a movie out. The band Life of Agony, my band. It's called The Sound of Scars. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a nice film, but it's more of a life documentary about the three of us. My cousin, who's the singer, Keith Caputo, who's my mother's brother's son. My best friend from high school, Alan, is the bass player of Life of Agony. But this film, The Sound of Scars on Amazon Prime, you can watch it tonight. It's about the way we grew up and how we formed, why and how we formed the band, and why the content is the way it is, and how we came up with this name and this journey we've been on. But anyway, going back to Joey as a kid, my parents got divorced. It was a bit rough. My father was a bit of a drinker. It's all in the film. Whoever wants to watch it could, he's going to get the whole story. He was a bit of a drinker, and it was a rough household. When my father finally was asked to leave, I started playing guitar. I was 13 years old because I had to watch my newly born baby brother, John. So my father left, and I became basically the dad in the house. I would watch my brother, and my mother had to go to work to make money for us. So my mom said, for your birthday, I want to help you get whatever you want. I was working since I was 12. I made pasta in Landy's pork store. So I was working, ever since I was a kid when my father was leaving. And I would go from school to work. So anyway, my mother said, okay. I said, Ma, I want a guitar. I want to learn how to play guitar. So I would watch my brother, feed him his bottle, put him to sleep. My mother would be at work, and I would learn rock songs on the couch. Even my girlfriends at the time, and believe it or not, yeah, I did have girlfriends when I was like 13, 14 years old. They would sit on the couch because I had to be home with my brother, and I would play guitar, and like, that was basically Joey growing up. And that's when I started this whole journey in music, was right there on the couch, putting on Ozzy Osbourne, putting on Iron Maiden, Metallica, Kiss. Those four bands, I would say, were the bands I started learning riffs as a young boy. And that was it. That was history. And I went to school visual arts in Manhattan. I was becoming an illustrator, and I was in my third year. And I came home one day and I told my mother, hey, Mom, it looks like a band is going to get signed. I think I want to stop school. And she let me. She was like, you know what? I did 3 years of school visual arts, SVA. And she said, if you want to continue your journey in music instead of art, she was like, if you see the road, if you're, going to be successful there, then go ahead and do it. So my mother was super supportive, and we got signed. Life of Agony got signed in 1992, and we put out our first record in 1993.
That's so exciting, right?
Yeah, and we're still doing it today. We're still touring the world, still living the dream. I gotta say it's a grind. I have a house, a wife, two daughters. So the music industry, as you know, is a roller coaster ride. And, there's some amazing years, and there's some years that, thank God for my wife, that she's, works for the Board of Ed in New York, and, brings in the insurance, that kind of stuff. I'm so grateful for her, and for her being patient with my career is a big thing. She's very patient. She's a big supporter. We've been together for 30, yeah, I think this year, 1989. So yeah, this year's 36 years we're together. So my wife and I have been together since we're teenagers.
Wow,
Yeah,
congratulations. That's
thank
like
you.
really amazing nowadays too,
Yeah,
it's just really incredible. Was
yeah, my
she
whole journey
she
with.
was one of the girls sitting on the couch probably with with
Well,
watching you
yeah,
play the guitar.
yeah. She was. Yeah, she did. She was actually. My wife was at my very first show I ever played, and it's on tape. And she's on the side of the stage cheering me on
Oh,
in front of
wow.
30 people.
Where were
You
you?
know,
Where was your first show? Where was
it
that?
it was Life of Agony, February 11th, 1990, in Keansburg, New Jersey.
What was the name of the club?
Oh, it was called Club Faces.
Oh, wow. Faces. I
Club
remember that.
Faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, Club
Oh,
Faces in
wow.
Keansburg, New Jersey. February 11th, 1990. We're about to celebrate our, 25. Well, no, what am I saying? 35, 35 years. I almost said
Wow.
25. 35 years.
That was a very special time in music. 1990, 1991. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking like Guns N' Roses. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot of really good music right around that time.
Yeah,
And a
absolutely.
lot of people were really kind of locked in, what's
Yeah.
coming out, who's coming out, what's happening. There was a lot going on. The
It's
Black
exciting.
Crows, yeah, there was a lot, yeah. A
It
lot
was an
going on.
exciting time. It was very, you had all the, you didn't have what we have today, obviously, the social medias and the internet. So you were seeking out music. You were going to the record store. You were going through the shelves and finding bands you never heard about and buying it based on the artwork. And it was an exciting time for us growing up like that. It really made it so special. I try to share that with my daughters and, share that with, friends and kids and stuff in the neighborhood here. And like, hey, get into vinyl, like check out some of the artwork, check out some of the lyrics, because there's some metal dudes in this, newer, how would you say, younger metal dudes that are floating around that even come to Life of Agony shows. So I
Oh,
try to.
absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting, though. Bring us back to the beginning of Life of Agony. Was that the original name, or was that changed by, the studio or?
No, no, it was original name. Well, and again, you should totally check out this movie, The Sound of Scars, on Amazon Prime. My cousin and I, Keith and I, were in a garage, basically in Brooklyn, and across the street, the bass player Alan was playing with another guy in another garage, and Alan came over to our garage and said, "How many songs you guys have?" We had 3 songs. He was like, "We only have one. Could I join your band?" And that's how the band started, really. And Alan came up with the name. He had a dream, and he said he saw a newspaper blowing against the fence, and it was the end of the world, and it was all gray, the skies, and he had said Life of Agony on the newspaper in his dream. He called me the next day, he goes, "I got a great name for our band, Life of Agony." And he told me the dream. I was like, "That's awesome. I love it."
That's
So that,
that's right up my alley because a lot of
yeah,
my dreams have come true in life. So I love
yeah,
that. That is
yeah.
really great.
It was
Wow.
really cool moment. And yeah, the name stuck, and we were Life of Agony ever since that phone call. So yeah, and that was in 1989 when he called me, tell me that.
Wow.
So
So,
yeah,
going from 3 or 4 songs to having your first album, what was that first experience for you? Like getting the record deal, starting
wow,
to understand the business, because being playing in a local band or playing in a local, kind of club scene is a
yeah.
lot different than walking into a recording studio or starting to meet with people. So what was that like for you guys?
Well, I'll give. There's a really short, fantastic story about that and how we ended up getting signed and discovered. Finally, really getting discovered by the record label. We would play the club L'Amour's a lot. Remember L'Amour in Brooklyn? So we were
Absolutely.
there a lot. We would play there. So the DJ at L'Amour's at the time also managed bands. And what band did he manage? Repulsion. Who was Repulsion? Was Typo Negative. It was their name before Typo. So Ken
Yes.
Creedy, his name is Ken Creedy, and he was the DJ at L'Amour's. He would spin music up in the booth. I knew he was managing Repulsion. I knew he was managing Peter Steele from Carnivore and Repulsion. I went up to the booth and we had a demo tape that we had recorded. I said, "Hey, Mr. Creedy, this is our demo tape. Please listen to it." I handed it to him. I turned around. I was walking back down the stairs, and I just happened to look back, and he threw it in the garbage. I turned around. I ran back upstairs. Dude, please. I picked it out of the garbage, and I said, "Listen to it." And he was like, "Okay, okay." He ended up managing us after that.
Oh my God, that's incredible, huh?
So then Life of Agony was managed by Ken Creedy, who was also managing Typo Negative because their name changed. So he had Typo Negative and Life of Agony. Typo just had gotten signed to Roadrunner. He got us signed to Roadrunner.
Wow.
Basically, basically he was a big help in getting us signed to Roadrunner. Him and Josh Silver from Typo Negative produced a demo for us, or a couple of demos, and we ended up getting signed to Roadrunner Records through Monty Connor. So that was such an exciting. It was just things needed to happen and things fell into place, and that's how life is, and you know that. It's where you are at the moment. It's like you and I meeting, and now, you know, and now here we're in this moment. Who knows where you and I are going to be a year from now? Like, even we may be doing something together. We don't
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I find things in life so interesting. From the dream to what made you turn around. you know? And
Right.
there's so many times in life that, you walk out of a room and you think nothing of it. What are those times, who is that is tapping you on the shoulder saying, turn
To
around?
look. Right.
Exactly.
Look, I got the chill. My whole arm is
Exactly,
standing up right
exactly,
now.
exactly. When you said that, I had a very unrelated thing early in my nursing career where, I wrote something down because I was like upset about, they didn't have enough staff or something. So I wrote it down and I gave it to the supervisor and I walked away and she
Yeah.
crumpled it up, called my name, and threw it in the basket. And I was like, okay, I need to go to another hospital. But
Oh, see,
she
there you go.
she actually called my name so that I would see her throw it in the garbage. And it was just, and that for me, that was the thing that said, okay, I need to go to New York City. Like
It's time to move on.
exactly, exactly. Exactly. So that
What
to me
that
is like, yeah. And then once I went to New York City, my career kind of went on a different path. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There is that thing that a lot of us, I know people like you and I, there is something else that we just can't, you can't put your finger on it. I feel it. I'm very sensitive to it. I live life through it. I gotta say, like, whether sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's light. Sometimes there's a darker feeling and something makes you say, you know what? Something's telling me I don't want to do that today. And I have a weird feeling. And it's something telling you that that's not the road you should be traveling on today. And I always, knock on wood, I always try to listen to that voice. I don't know. And then sometimes that voice is automatic, like turning your head around and seeing him throw the tape in the garbage, you know?
Yeah,
So,
that is really incredible. So
yeah,
once you got that album, I mean, that
yeah,
like, automatically you get the album. What did they guarantee you? Like, did they put you on tour right away? Like, how did
yeah.
your life just change overnight?
It was wild. It was so cool because, I grew up looking at all those magazines and photos of like Metallica in front of the 100,000 people at a stadium. And, I always said as a kid, sitting on my couch learning those songs, oh man, I want to do that. Like pointing at the picture, talking to nobody, just myself going, wow, I want to do that. I want to play in front of that crowd. And I remember the first time we played a festival of that size, we played the Dynamo Festival in Eindhoven, Holland. And it was in 1994. It was May 1994. And we played in front of 92,000 people. And up until that point, we only played in front of maybe 1,500 to 2,000 people, like, large theaters, let's say. We only did a couple of shows like that. Suddenly, we do this festival. And I cried at that show. I think I cried about 3, 4 times on stage while I was playing. The chills were so bad in my neck, it kept making me cry because the whole crowd it's in the movie too. The whole crowd just looked like a wave, like the way they were jumping. It was like the first 50,000 people, our whole set, because we gained popularity quick in Europe right away. And we had a huge fan base out there. The first album hit, River Runs Red. And it was it was it was almost like living in a dream. That's the best way I could describe it. Playing those concerts and seeing those people jumping like in sync to our music, it was it was extraordinary. That's the only way I could describe it. Um,
Yeah, that to me is so awesome, though. One of the biggest things that I really like is that when you said that you used to see the magazines and
yeah,
you used to look at the pictures, like in some way, and I talk about this for years now, but somehow, especially when children do this, they unconsciously or subconsciously manifest something where they
yes,
actually program that into their mind through a picture or through an experience, and they say, that's what I want. So you're
yes.
on a like you're on a trajectory, basically on your way to do something. You just don't know. Your conscious mind doesn't know how you get there, but your subconscious has already decided that's what you want.
and your subconscious, exactly, your subconscious is paving the way for you. The
Correct.
subconscious is putting the bricks one in front of the other, whether you know it or not. Your subconscious keeps putting those stepping stones one ahead of the next, and you're on your way, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, that is really incredible. It really is. So it's interesting. I don't want to just hang on the first album, but to
Yeah.
me, the first album is like the first child, the first car, the first whatever. There's some kind of an
Mm-hmm.
importance to it. So you said that the river runs red. Who came up with that?
Yeah, again, I got to give Alan, our bass player, he is a creative force. Alan, he's written a lot of lyrics for the band, and he's the bass player. He's not even the lead singer, and he's written a lot of the content. He has a wild imagination, and he has a great way to take our stories, someone else's story. You tell him something you've been through, and he'll show up 2 days later with a whole song, but written in a way that's not personal to you, but that anybody can relate to it. So I think that is the key to our band. That is where we had the most success. People coming up to us saying, "You saved my life." The name Life of Agony is a contradiction there. There's a big contradiction because we actually have saved so many people's lives through our lyrics, through the darkness of our lyrics and the darkness of our content about suicide and about taking your own life and about why I'll never get through this, that kind of stuff. It's helped people because they realize these guys know what I'm going through. They're speaking my life right now through their music. And we've saved lives because of this. We've saved so many people, and we've had people crying us. Again, it's all in the movie. When you see this film, it is an emotional roller coaster, this film,
I
Catherine.
know. I can't wait. I
Sound of
can't wait.
Scars.
I know. It's really, I can't wait to get that and see that. One thing I did want to make mention of, and
Yeah.
this is something that I really like, is that you have kind of reflected on movies that you've watched growing up
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that you've created, reproduced the songs of those movies. One in
Yep.
particular, which is so near and dear to my heart, it was 1985, and it was the song Don't You Forget About Me by the
Yeah.
Breakfast Club, And believe it or not, in 1985, it was March 27th, but my mother dropped dead suddenly.
Mhm.
And I was 16 and my sister was 17. And the song on every radio station was Don't You Forget About Me.
Oh my God.
And
So that is
we heard it over and over again. And we loved the movie. We loved, all the characters in the movie, and we loved the song. But now it's like, 40 something years later, and every time that song comes on, we always say, "Oh, that's the song for mommy," because
well,
that
that's her saying hello.
exactly, yeah,
And
exactly.
and what are the lyrics saying? Don't forget about me.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was
You
just
know?
the timing of that, but also that every teen, that was around when that movie came out could
Yes.
identify with each and every one of those characters. There was the
Hello, I'm
jock,
one right here.
the
I'm
jock
one
and
with you.
the freaky girl and the preppy girl and the, all of that.
Yeah.
So, to me, so when I was like, "Oh my God, they did that song," I was just like, I have to mention that on the show
Oh,
tonight. Yeah.
absolutely. We were always heavily influenced as people and as artists from movies. Like you said, we would watch movies together as a band. We all the time. I mean, on the road, even before we started touring, we would either go to my house or Alan's basement or whatever, and we would all watch movies together. And I think if again, influence can come from many directions. It doesn't always have to just come from another song. You could be influenced by other people. You could be influenced by a book. You could be influenced by a movie to be creative. They have an effect on you. These types of medias and just uh, experiences in life have influenced on music, of course. So movies played a big role for us and there's a lot of little, even on our first record, River Runs Red, there's, like, Pink Floyd, The Wall, the album, but the movie Pink Floyd, The Wall, we would watch that. You've watched that, right?
Yes, yeah.
And at that time we were creating River Runs Red. We watched that movie a few times, and we would watch Clockwork Orange. So, things like that. And those influences somehow trickled their way into our record. Whether you hear it or not, there's a vibe. There's a vibe there that we walked away from those movies and somehow it made it into the music and into the content. So, I'm not saying movies were the only thing we were influenced by, but I would definitely say this band has been heavily influenced by film.
Yeah, I find that very interesting because I know that you also did the song, you did a dedication called The Crow.
Yes,
And that,
Brandon Lee.
yeah, and that actually has a video and everything you could see on YouTube and all that.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about that? Because I
Yeah,
find that,
sure.
yeah, that's very deep. And it was like, even when you read it, and when you go to
Yeah.
YouTube and you look that up and you start reading about it,
About what we did.
yeah, but they also mention the other songs that you've actually done, so they kind of go into depth with that. So if you can just kind of talk a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
about The Crow, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a special one for me because I fully produced it here at the studio myself. So it was one of the first songs that for the band that we didn't have any outside people work with us on it. So I was the only producer. So it was kind of like I feel like a turning point. This song is a turning point for us, and it just came out just recently. It just came out what I think it was August this year, and I should say last year, 2024. So anyway, the reason why we did the song, there's a bit of a story behind it. You familiar with the movie The Nun? The
Of
Nun.
course, yes, it's
Okay,
scary.
so
Of course.
our friend Corinne Hardy directed The Nun. He's a good friend. He's a huge Life of Agony fan, the director of The Nun. We've known him for years, before he directed The Nun, obviously. For years and years, we've known him. And he was going to be the one to do the new Crow a few years back. You know the new Crow that just came out?
Yes.
He was the one, his studio was the one that got the first contract for the remake of The Crow. But this is years ago. This is a few years ago already. Anyway, make a long story short, he asked us to do the song title track for his movie, The Crow. So we wrote this song basically, and it sat in a computer because his studio lost the contract to the movie. So we wrote a song for his movie originally. Then his studio lost the contract. Now the song sat in the hard drive. We didn't revisit that song for a while. Then we heard about the movie coming out with a different studio. And we were always fans of the original Crow, Brandon Lee's Crow. So we talked as a band, and we knew it was the 30th anniversary. We said, you know what? Why don't we pull that song seed out of the hard drive, rework it, right? And make a tribute to Brandon Lee with the song. You know what I mean? Like, do something with this song, but do something for him. Do something for his legacy. So we basically reworked the song. So we decided, let's rework this song, and we want to put it out and this is the truth, as a tribute to Brandon Lee instead of what it was originally intended for. So, and that's the true story of how this song came about. But I think it's a beautiful thing because after we reworked it, the way it came out and the way it ended up sounding and the lyrical, because the lyrics weren't all finished and it wasn't all done. So after we thought, hey, let's repurpose this song for something more meaningful, we were super excited about it. Then we were all fired up and went in and recorded it here in my studio.
It's really a special piece. I mean, when you like, I listened to it without looking at the video, and then I went back and played the video and listened to it. So it's really something that you can kind of experience in different ways.
Yes.
Did the estate find out that you did all that?
I'm not too sure. There weren't any other people involved. It was more of a, we also didn't use Brandon Lee's name because we were said, let's not put his name on the song because, then there's, who knows, there might be some kind of legality thing. So we said a tribute to BL,
That's
his
right.
initials
Yeah.
instead. So that basically, in memory of BL, actually is what it's really called. The Crow in memory of BL. So Brandon Lee. But we didn't hear from the estate or anything. It was more of a honoring this man, honoring this person who lost their life during filming of the original movie. And we find it, we're just very happy with the way everything turned out, and very proud of honoring someone special like that, honoring
Yeah.
someone who we looked up to as kids and who influenced us.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful tribute, and I think it's very telling. I mean, anybody would see the crow, they would put two and two together. So I think
Yeah.
everyone has figured it out. But I think that it was such a particular time in the industry, which still
Yes.
gets noted till this day, because in most recent times in filmings, there's been, an accidental, death of the, director
Of
on
a
it.
star. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they still mention it, and it's one of the most recent events that they reference, for events that shouldn't have happened.
Right.
So I think that it's a wonderful tribute, to in some way to keep his memory alive in a positive way, like you're saying,
Yeah.
to remember the work he did, not for the way he left our lives,
Ab,
and
ab, a
it's
thousand
yeah.
percent, 1,000%. And we can't forget. There's one more thing we can't forget about is that the soundtrack to that original movie, the soundtrack, if you remember, there was such awesome music on that soundtrack. And we purposely went after a sound and a song style that would have fit seamlessly on that particular soundtrack. And I think we nailed that part because a lot of people say, wow, the way this came out, it could have been on the original soundtrack. And a bunch of reviewers actually made that point to say that. So thought that was really cool that they picked up on that, the actual sound.
Oh yeah, but it's also a compliment, when you do something and it's so personal to you, and then to sit back and get really good reviews on it,
Yeah.
then it's
Yeah.
even a bigger compliment, to the works that you do. So thinking about the movie theme for a minute, is there a movie that the band, would say, we have to do this one day, Is there like a short list of things?
I know we have for sure this band has favorite movies. I could go through a quick list. Clockwork Orange for sure. The Shining, Jack Nicholson. These are some of our favorites. The Warriors, the old movie The Warriors.
Love
I
that.
think if anything, there'd probably be a Warriors song type of, you know.
That would
Uh,
be actually very appropriate for this period of time with what our subway problems in New York City.
yeah, it
Yeah,
would. It most
exactly.
definitely would. So yeah, there's a short list there, but I guarantee you at some point one of those movies is going to definitely get some kind of LOA love, let's call it.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. It's amazing how you can make music, and you
Yeah,
said something earlier and it really struck me because when I hear a song, I hear a song. And when you're a musician, you don't hear the song the way a non musician hears the song. So if you're a drummer, you're like, laser focused on the drums. If you're a guitarist, you're laser focused on the guitarist. Or someone is saying, they could have came in a little earlier. Or, I don't
right.
hear any of that. And I'm like, geez, I'm so glad I'm not a musician because I hear it the way they want me to hear it.
I do try to leave myself open because I hear a lot of music. Obviously, I'm constantly in the studio here, day in, day out, different bands, my own stuff. You've heard my own music. I put that tribute the first. I also do work on TV and film. I actually did all the sound for the Sound of Scars for our movie, the mix, the sound mix, and the dialogue and stuff like that. I do that post movie work. But anyway, going back to what you just said, I try to leave myself open to enjoy music because I think that's very important. Not to get so stuck on the technical, being in my seat, in my position, I still try to leave myself open enough where I can enjoy when I turn on music and not be so focused on one thing, but actually allow the music to affect me emotionally. That's very important to me as a just as an artist, as a person, is to feel the emotion in things, whether it's a movie, a book, a conversation, a piece of music. The way I stumbled upon releasing these other songs, my own music that we've been talking about, you and
Yes.
I,
Yeah. So
is
tell us about that music. Tell
I
us.
will.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm a metal guy and I do all this metal music for Life of Agony and I write a lot of heavy stuff, let's call it, okay? Heavy rock, heavy metal. So during COVID, I we were in the house a lot, obviously, you know that. And I had the studio down here. My studio is in my home. It's my wife was nice enough to let me build the whole studio here in the home after I lost my studio in Hurricane Sandy. That's a long story. Anyway, during COVID, I would come down, if they had things to do, if they had other stuff going on upstairs with the girls, I would come down, turn on the studio, and I would just pick up the guitar, pick up the keyboard, and just start messing around, just start recording anything. And slowly, a song would pop out here or there, a very special riff or a very special sounding piece of music. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to elaborate on that. It has nothing to do with heavy metal, has nothing to do with Life of Agony. It doesn't even sound like rock. It just sounds like something else. So I started creating these pieces of music, and lo and behold, the pieces of music started piling up in a folder. And it just kind of happened on its own, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like waking up and not knowing actually what your subconscious is gonna do that day. And it was magical because at the same time I'm doing this, I get a call from a friend in the film industry, said, "Hey Joe, I know you're home a lot with your studio. Would you be willing to do some work for me with my film stuff? You think you could do that with your studio?" And I was like, I never did that before, but I'll give it a shot. So this person with a phone call sent me some video stuff to work on, stuff she was working on for TV. And suddenly she was like, "Oh, well, do you have a piece of music that could work with that?" And before I knew it, I'm doing work with video and TV and film. And I didn't even know I was going to be doing that. So now I did a couple of movies already. I did Brightwood, it's out on Amazon Prime. I did the entire Sound of Scars, which is the LOA film, and I've done pieces on other movies. Now, this fell in my lap without really saying, "Oh, I'm going to start working on music and audio post work for film and TV." I didn't know I was going to start doing this. So it was all because of COVID, the time that we were locked down, that I started doing this work. Then it got out there that someone said to this one, "Oh, Joey's doing work with film." Oh, so inquiries started coming in, and that's how I got the movie Brightwood. And I ended up doing the whole film right here behind me in my studio, did all the sound design, all the mixing, the dialogue. You could see it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's so cool. It's such a cool thing. And now I'm in that world. My foot is in the door. And not only am I doing music in the music world, but now I'm doing audio, post work, all this other stuff in the film and TV world.
That is really amazing. That is so great. So now I have a little list I have to write. I have to watch Brightwood. I have to watch Sound of
Sound of
Scars.
Scars.
I know it's amazing. Just so everyone knows, I know that you've been promoting this music,
Yeah.
Pitfalls in Paradise, and
Yeah.
you
The
know,
Fields.
yeah, you have quite a few of them, and they're all instrumental. They're beautiful, and I know that you've been donating some of the proceeds
That's right.
to
The,
Wounded
fo-
Warriors.
the Wounded Warrior Foundation. The Fields, the first one I released was released on Veterans Day. And you, Kat, you were a huge help in getting that song heard. I don't have the amount of followers on social media that you have. So I am grateful. It's funny about the proceeds. I'm still waiting for because the song was released in Veterans Day, but you don't start seeing anything until it takes a while for that to build up for them to send it to you. So I still have seed zero from the release of these songs. I haven't seen any money yet, but I'm sure I will. And when I do, yes, of course, the proceeds I'm be donating to the Wounded Warriors. But I think it was such a special thing to be able to release a song for our veterans, and the Fields really has that feel of that vastness, being in a field alone or with a troop, it was really for them, and to remember to pay homage to them, to all you guys
Yeah,
alive or not with us anymore, and,
that's
and
right.
people that are alive.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I think the instrumental part of your new music really requires probably video. So if you were
Yes,
to
it
combine
does.
the video and then push it out with the video, you might see, it picked up
More.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I did not do that. My capabilities, like I would have to pretty much like hire people to, or my point about making these pieces was try to get them in movies. So I recently joined TuneCore, and that's how I'm releasing these. And TuneCore also shops it, does sync licensing. So they do both. They release it musically on iTunes and Apple and all this stuff, like the way we're seeing it. And then they also, behind the scenes, they take these songs like The Fields, Pitfalls in Paradise, Lost Years, all these songs I've been putting out, and they shop it towards movies, television, video, all kinds of stuff. So I'm hoping that it gets picked up there sooner or
Well,
later as well.
we'll have to connect because they have Lionsgate. They do a lot of filming in Yonkers, and they're
Yeah.
actually
Oh,
building another Lionsgate in Yonkers. So there's a
wow.
lot of filming that's happening in Yonkers. So we'll have to get you somehow tucked into what's
There
going
you
on in
go.
Yonkers.
There you go. See, this is what I'm
Exactly.
talking about. We don't know
Exactly.
what you and I will be doing a year
That's
from
right.
now. That's what I meant when I said that.
So true. Well, it's been a pleasure to
Thank
have you on. I mean, I want you to be able to kind of promote your websites and how people are able to get this music. So please plug yourself.
Sure. Well, my personal website is www.joeyzproductions.com. And on there, you can get in touch with me about projects, about recording, about doing work on film and TV and or post audio work or whatever. And also, there's also lifeofagony.com, where that's the band I tour and I've been touring in for the last 30 years. We're still going strong. We got a big tours coming this year in 2025. Tours we're very excited about, sold out shows already. And also on my social media pages, Instagram, I'm just Joey Zampella. Follow me. Come check out what I post. It's usually always positive, fun stuff, as you know, Catherine.
Yes.
um, and yeah, and check out my work. You could see my work with and hear my work with The Sound of Scars on Amazon Prime, and the movie Brightwood, which is a sci-fi horror movie. It's pretty twisted. I think people like it. All my work is in there. I did that as well. So yeah, I work with many bands, and yeah, I'm totally out there and I'm reachable. My email address is joeyzproductions@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with me.
This is great. So basically, where are you touring?
Well, this year we're going back to Europe. We have a co-headlining tour with Biohazard, who was originally from Brooklyn. I don't know if you heard that name.
Yes, I know them.
Um, Yeah, those are good friends. We grew up with them, and we're finally doing our first tour together after 30 years. Band we grew up, our friends, we're finally getting a tour together, and we're very excited because the shows are selling out all over Europe. I mean, big shows too. So that's happening in mid-February. We leave, and we get back near the end of March. So it's a
Okay,
long
great.
tour.
Well, this is great. So we're going to have to follow you on social media and see what's
Yeah,
going on in the UK. So we're going to roll
yeah.
out with your song, Pitfalls in Paradise. It's been a pleasure to have you on, Joey.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And this is the perfect outro music, I would say.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Catherine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.